Good morning. Welcome to Unity Longmont Spiritual Center on the 4th of February, 2024. And we are blessed to have Connie Schaefer and Clint Brown to provide us with music this morning. I'm Dava Money, and I will be speaking about soul boom and the need for a spiritual revolution. And so we will start with music from Connie and Clint, please.
When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell our story from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our heart stirs within, and we feel the power of each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place. Then our heart is in a holy place. Then our heart is in a holy place.
Thank you for the music and for those divine lyrics. I ask everyone to remember those lyrics as we get into our talk today. It's at this time that we go into prayer by taking a breath together, settling into our bodies, our minds, and our sacred hearts. Beloved presence, we join today to share the love and grace around us, within us. We cultivate kindness, especially when we are together. We remember who we truly are as we see each other's faces, as we are in this holy place. And for that and so much more, we express our gratitude. Thank you. Thank you. And so it is. And we will hear from Clint and Connie again.
Though below me I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean, still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I traveled, and the earth is my blue boat home. Sun, my sail, and moon, my rudder, as I ply the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the light of the heavens in a beautiful blue boat home. We give thanks to the waves upholding us, hail the great winds urging me on. Breathe the infinite sea before me, sing the sky my sailor song. I was born upon the fathoms, never over or port have I known. Wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. Wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue home.
Thank you, Connie and Clint, especially for reminding us of home, this beautiful planet. So, the Friday Book Group has been reading Soul Boom by Rainn Wilson, and he brings his quirky humor into the book. He starts off by describing the spirituality of Star Trek and Kung Fu. Very fun place to start. He was raised Baha'i and he draws on the Baha'i practices and faith when he describes our world and its sufferings. He really articulates what is wrong with our country and our world right now. And those parts of the book were a little disheartening to read. And we have to keep coming back to the remembrance that he's writing the book to say there's some kind of solution here. And so we will finish this book this coming Friday. So I may not offer you the entire solution today, but that which I know and understand is what I'm going to address. Sometimes when we look at this world, all the suffering, all the disenfranchisement and divisiveness, it's hard to know what to do as an individual. So some of what I'm going to talk about today is how do we take care of ourselves? What can we offer to the world ourselves? One of the things that I've said recently is I think we really need to pay attention in each moment to how we are experiencing our life, to notice the ups and downs that as a human being we may go through, to notice anything within us that is calling to be healed, and to take responsibility for that. And as we do, our more pure divine essence shows up, and I believe alters the world. That's my hope. So he suggests that individually and as a culture, we must be more intentional in cultivating essential spiritual qualities, including selflessness, kindness, compassion, humility, honesty, and generosity, among others. So today, as I read these attributes, for there will be many, I invite you to just notice what they mean to you and to know and to understand that you have them within you. Each of us do. And maybe to be a little curious about how often do we each cultivate them and share them. All of these attributes lead to cooperation, which our world very, 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 very much needs right now. He quotes Buckminster Fuller, "You never change things by fighting the existing reality. You don't change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete." There's an invitation for imagination and action in that quote. So let's explore how we can do that. I invite each of us to take a breath and to ask, is there any inner calling to add to the good and the beauty of this world? Are we called individually and collectively to add to the good and the beauty of this world? How do we do that? So Wilson shares 7 pillars, which I believe are his, that will lead to transformation. One is create a new mythology. Stories have so much power, so much meaning. Think for a moment about your own life story. What do you know about yourself and your experience? How often and in what way do you share your own story? Isn't that a part of how people know you, of what draws people to you? What do we often do to be entertained? We are captivated by stories. Reading them, hearing them, watching them, they're so powerful. So we need to create a new story for our world. The second is create joy and fight cynicism. And again, I believe we need to start within. So noticing our joy, sharing our joy, noticing when we're cynical, being gentle with that and letting it go. The next one, the language disturbs me a little bit, but it is destroy adversarial systems. That's powerful language, destroy adversarial systems. How do we begin to do that? I invite you to consider that. One of my first thoughts is we show up and vote in our country. The fourth is build something new, don't just protest. There's nothing wrong with drawing a placard and going out and protesting and drawing attention to an issue. And then how do we go forward from there? The next pillar suggests that we systemize grassroots movements, that we join together in small groups, in large groups, and have plans and advocate and follow through on action. He points out to the civil rights movement and how much coordination and how many everyday people got involved in that to make significant changes in our world. I loved the movie Rustin, Rustin. It is about a man, a Black man, who is behind developing the march to DC for the civil rights movement. And one of the things the movie points out is not just his story, which is phenomenal, but how much organization went into making that happen. How many buses and drivers got called from around our country to show up? How many people made sandwiches? How many people provided the electronics, the microphones, setting up tents? Thousands and thousands of people showed up, and even more were behind it happening. Number 6 is, and this is the part I'm going to focus on today, invest in virtues education. Invest in virtues education. The first class I took in my Master's of Education class was, what has the education been like in America, and where was it going? This was back in 1989. And what I didn't know and learned was that early education in the US taught virtues. It taught how to build good characteristics. As Wilson points out, our schools don't teach that anymore. In fact, he was very specific about how much of the education is pretty impractical, not necessarily things that we're going to draw on in our daily life, nor add to the beauty and the good of the world. So it's kind of tricky to talk about how do we shift our entire education system to teach virtues. Think about the word virtue for a moment. It is often associated with religious values or religion. That was the initial discomfort with it in the beginning of education here in this country. But does it need to be religious? Virtue, it's good. One of the things I'm aware of is that increasingly more and more people in our country are identifying as spiritual, but not religious. People have been leaving churches, traditional churches, for decades. And I imagine that a lot of those people that have left still have a longing for something, for community, for inspiration. So I'm thinking of these virtues as spiritual. And I invite you in this moment to ask yourself, what does the word spiritual and spirituality mean to you? I think those are powerful words. The last is to harness radical compassion. Think about, especially since the 70s, how often the topic of compassion has come about. In my memory, in the 70s, we began to learn a lot more about Eastern philosophies and Eastern spirituality. And the heart of many of those is compassion. There has been a swelling of Buddhism. And if you don't buy into the beliefs of Buddhism, that's fine. But let's go to the heart of it and say, what is compassion? And is that something that would lead to the good and betterment of our world? I do believe so. So we need a new story, right? This is a quote. If our framing story tells us that we are free and responsible creatures in a creation made by a good, wise, and loving God, and that our Creator wants us to pursue virtue, collaboration, peace, and mutual care for one another and all living creatures, and that our lives can have profound meaning, then society will take a radically different direction and our world will become a very different place. That was Brian McLaren. Don't we all want that? From Richard Rohr, when we believe in a deep way that life is good, God is good, and humanity is good, we do exciting and imaginative things because we are confident that we are part of a storyline that is going somewhere good. This new story can include that we are all one and it is good. Let's review Unity's Principle 1. There is only one presence and one power active in my life, God the good. One power, one presence, God the good. And Principle 2, our essence is of God. Therefore, we are inherently good. If we are, then so are others, even if they are not acting like that. When we see someone who is bombastic and nasty, we know they are suffering, and that's how their suffering is showing up. That may be helpful to remember. Archbishop Desmond Tutu said, we must recognize that we are part of one group, one family, the human family. Our survival as a planet depends on it. We are part of one family and we are fundamentally good. Can that be the new story? I believe that each of us need to return again to that truth about ourselves, that we are inherently good and others. That can be challenging as we observe someone that we judge to be less than good. And notice that word judge, because that's what our human mind does. We're always assessing and judging. In order to get beyond that, let us call on our divinity and not just know, but deeply understand our goodness. Compassion can be critical in showing us that shift we can make in our perspective. There is a beautiful practice that can help us do that. And if you're willing, I invite you to do that practice with me. First of all, by calling to mind someone that you struggle with a bit, not the worst person on the planet. When we're doing a new practice, we want something that's reasonable, that's the medium there. So call to mind someone that you either don't understand or that you judge or you struggle with in some way. And let us do that as we take a breath. I invite you to repeat after me as you hold this person in your mind. Just like me, this person is seeking happiness in their life. Just like me, this person is trying to avoid suffering in their life. Just like me, this person has known sadness, loneliness, and despair. Just like me, this person is seeking to fulfill their needs. Just like me, this person is learning about life. Let us take a breath and notice how we feel. Let us be aware of the innate compassion that is part of our essence, part of our goodness. So coming back to virtue, Wilson suggests we teach these spiritual virtues, these good character traits. He writes that Aristotle said, virtue means doing the right thing in relation to the right person at the right time, to the right extent, in the right manner, and for the right purpose. That's a lot of rights. That's a lot of discernment. Discerning in each occasion what is the best thing to do. And I imagine we get better with practice. In the authenticity compassion class that I developed and I teach, we look at the different levels of understanding the suffering of another. And Wilson does the same thing by identifying what Harvard Business Review said, and I was delighted to learn that it was the same. Pity. Think and feel for a moment what pity is. Pity is feeling sorry for the other person. As soon as we feel sorry for another person, we elevate ourselves above that person. There's a distancing that happens emotionally. Sympathy is feeling for that person, yet there's still some detachment from that person. I am here and you are there and you are suffering. That is sympathy. Empathy is feeling with the person. I work a lot with highly sensitive persons and am one. And our greatest gift is empathy. So that when we are near you, when we see your face on Zoom, and some emotion shifts within you, we feel it in our own body. Think how close that brings us in our ability to understand the suffering of the other. Compassion is the highest level. It is, I feel for you, with you, and I am here to help. The compassion word, calm with passion, suffering. In Greek, it means split open gut. So when I see you suffering, I feel it in my body. I know it in my heart. I recognize it in my mind. And therefore, I'm going to treat you differently than if I pity you. True? So how do we cultivate that in ourselves? With practice. And we need compassion for ourselves. Each and every one of us has a tendency to judge ourselves. We need to have compassion for the part of us that does that. I don't remember where I found this spiritual values list, but I'm going to read through them. It's a little lengthy. Spiritual principles include honesty, openness, willingness, acceptance, surrender, hope, commitment, faith, courage, humility, unconditional love, perseverance, God-centeredness, awareness, vigilance, self-discipline, sharing and caring, patience, forgiveness, optimism, selflessness, compassion, consideration, kindness, positive thinking, responsibility, tolerance, and I added trust, unity, gratitude, and service. It's a long list, but I think that those things can be taught. I think that we can, through experiences with other people, cultivate them within ourselves and in others. We are of an age that we may not have as much effect and influence on younger generations. Maybe that's not true. But when we do have interactions with them, is there some way of planting seeds, even if it's something as simple as we see someone we know who is young and they're kind, to say, that was so lovely. That was so lovely. So where do we go? How do we create this new story? One thing Wilson points out is that these positive attributes may not sit well because they're considered religious, right? I said that earlier. What is other language we can use to talk about these, to share these, to teach these, besides religion? Think about that. I am also struck by the similarity between these many attributes and Unity's 12 powers. So as I state them, I invite you to notice the similarity and to remember that our divinity includes all of these 12 powers. They are there for us to access and to use. The first is faith. Faith. The second is strength. And then there is wisdom and love and power and imagination and understanding and will, order, zeal, release, and life. Those are a lot. Let us draw on them consciously. Let us demonstrate those in our worlds with our loved ones. When we encounter someone who is kind, who is loving, who is wise, who has innate strength, and all the others, don't we feel it? I think we feel it at a molecular level. And I think that those attributes that that person is demonstrating call on our own attributes to come out, to come forth. In my most recent journey of navigating a diagnosis and treatment, I have encountered so much love, so much kindness, so much wisdom, so many stories. These stories have some themes in them: survival, love, choice, compassion, community, caring. All the virtues are in these stories that other people are sharing with me. And as I hear them, and even in this moment, I have full body chills and energy moving through me. I am inspired by these people and by their stories. What can we each do to inspire? You remember the Celestine prophecy? That novel impacted me enormously. It was written in 1989. Think of what was going on spiritually in 1989. Lots of stuff, right? But it wasn't published until the 90s. And it was a story, not especially well edited, in my opinion, but it came out with 9 spiritual insights. And as I read those, each resonated, each was like a way forward. It was like this huge beam of light focused on the future for myself and hopefully for others. So, one of the things he says in there, one of the first things is a new spiritual awakening is occurring in human culture, a new spiritual awakening. An awakening brought about by a critical mass of individuals, more and more and more people who experience their lives as a spiritual unfolding. A spiritual unfolding. Just consider for a moment your own life. And wouldn't you describe it as a spiritual unfolding? A journey in which we are led forward by mysterious coincidences. I would call those mystical moments, where all of a sudden something is clear to us. Something shifts in our body. Something about our essence comes forward. And we make a choice. And it can be a small choice like turn right instead of left, and right leads us to someone who needs us or to something we need. And just pause for a moment and review how often those things, those opportunities have occurred in your life and will continue to. And think about the growing number of people that are engaged in that practice. And that gives me hope that when we look at our world and all that is wrong with it, there will be enough love and passion and commitment and virtues to make changes. Let us not diminish, deny the small things we do, the opening the door for someone, as we go into the store, the returning the grocery cart that somebody left by their car, the smile when we're out walking, the commenting on the cuteness of their dog. These are little things. And we're invited to those and to those that are larger. Someone we know is suffering. Let us fall into compassion and know how to respond to them. There is a way forward. Let's find it together. And so it is, and we will hear from Connie and Clint.
So this is the shortest month of the year. Of course, I'm talking about Black History Month. So as a in thinking of that, there's the old song. Let's see, up by the riverside. Gonna lay down my sword and shield down by the riverside. Going down the riverside. Down by the riverside, we're gonna lay down my sword and shield. Down by the riverside, down by the riverside. I'm gonna put on my long white robe. Down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside. I'm gonna put on my long white robe. Down by the riverside, down by the riverside. I'm gonna lay down my sword and shield. Down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside. I'm gonna lay down my sword and shield. Down by the riverside, down by the riverside.
Hallelujah. Thank you. Hallelujah. It's at this time that we go into our donation of love and light. And we do that again by taking a breath and being fully aware of our bodies, our minds, our sacred hearts. Deeply aware of our own essence of goodness. Aware of the light, the divine light, and divine love that we are. It is so large we cannot contain it, and we allow it to expand beyond ourselves, to be shared. We may notice as it expands that we feel differently. We may feel stronger. We may feel more alive. We are reminded we can do this sharing at any time by choice. And so it is. And we will finish with Clint and Connie.
The tide is rising, and so are we. The tide is rising, and so are we. The tide is rising, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. The task is mighty, and so are we. The task is mighty, and so are we. The task is mighty, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. The land is holy, and so are we. The land is holy, and so are we. The land is holy, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. The storm is raging, and so are we. The storm is raging, and so are we. The storm is raging, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. The world is ready, and so are we. The world is ready, and so are we. The world is ready, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be.